Okay. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to half-empty Pear Community Centre. The other half will be arriving shortly. Just a wee bit on that. You can see it's quite congested. It's great to see this type of attendance. Somebody told me a wee while ago that politics were dead in Scotland. Must be joking. Anyway, for the sake of health and safety and all the rest of it, just make sure there's a wee bit of room as possible, and we'll all get through the night in a good, fit and proper fashion. And have a bit of sympathy for our friend Jackie, who's the caretaker tonight. And we'll try and keep the steam going out the windows one way or another. So I want to welcome you all. My name's John Milligan from the Lanarkshire Forum for Independence. And just to say that the BBC cameras are here tonight as well. And these guys here, these technical guys here, there's a live stream going. So you're able to tune in your house and watch the whole event once you know what you're tuned into. So there you are. I'll just read it out. Someday you want to tweet some of your guys now or get on your mobile phones. And it's independencelive.net. Independencelive.net. And they'll get you to Pear Community Centre as you sit in your front room. So, which is very, very good, this technological age, because a lot of people can't make particular meetings, and elderly people and disabled and so on who would like to come to these occasions. It's a good benefit for them. Anyway, as I say, my name is John Milligan, the Lanarkshire Forum for Independence, and we are hosting tonight's meeting. The forum was established to promote the case for a yes vote in the referendum ballot on the 18th of September, when we'll all be asked, should Scotland be an independent country? Now, we are not aligned to any political party and do not promote any individual political party's programme or manifesto. But we want to engage with the voters, providing information where we can, and most importantly, give voters the opportunity to come together, raise their concerns and express their views. As such, we have organised a series of public meetings, besides supporting our colleagues in Yes, Mullow and Wishaw and other elements of the Yes campaign, canvassing, leaflet distribution, street stalls, etc. And it's therefore a pleasure to meet a request and get the opportunity to come to Wishaw to pay that, and to be able to put the case for a yes vote in September. Now, the meeting tonight is open to all, decided or undecided. It's an opportunity for all of us to hear not only why we should have an independent Scotland, but also what that independent Scotland can bring. What opportunities come with an independent Scotland? How can we develop a more fair and just society? How can we use the material resources of the country in combination with the intelligence of its people so that future generations can prosper? What are the consequences of a no vote on the 18th of September? Now, Jim Sellers, you will know, writes in his book, In Place of Fear 2, the referendum is about power. The referendum is about power. On the 18th of September, between the hours of 7 a.m. and 10 p.m., absolute sovereign power will lie in the hands of the Scottish people. They have to decide whether to keep it or give it away, to where the minority status makes them permanently powerless and vulnerable. So that, ladies and gentlemen, that is the importance of the choice before us, when we, the voters, will have the power in our hands, not to elect a political party into government, but to change direction, to begin a new journey for the benefit of future generations, our children and our grandchildren. I just heard one a minute ago have a heckle on me. But I'm used to that in the house. Anyway. And to help us on this journey of hope over fear, we have with us tonight an excellent advocate for an independent Scotland, Tommy Sheridan. Tommy, his tour on the independence campaign is entitled Hope Over Fear. And we extend a sincere wish of welcome to Tommy and to his wife Gail down the front here. Now, Tommy doesn't need any introduction from me. We've been comrades for a fair number of years, even as far back when both of us used to carry a comb in our top pocket. Suffice to say that Tommy Sheridan, when he's allowed to focus on his brief, is an unsurpassed advocate on behalf of working people here in Scotland. He has been touring Scotland, putting the case for independence, looking to convince in packed halls throughout the country. So we're looking forward to hear what Tommy's got to say on this particular challenge and choice before us on the 18th of September. Chairing the meeting tonight is Sharon Anderson, as they say, a local woman from Peather, and one of the self-styled indie girls. There are a few of them about tonight, by the way. And we are pleased to say that indie girls are part of our group, formed to promote debate and discussion for Scottish independence, focusing solely on women. I have to say, they have done so with enthusiasm, humour, intelligence, and provided insightful material, and I congratulate them. And who's missing tonight? We're going to have one woman that accompanies Tommy to meetings, Mary Black, who's unfortunately unable to make it tonight. She sends her apologies. But what is particularly welcoming, before I hand over to Sharon to chair the proceedings, and inspiring, is to see the number of people, many of them young people, actively engaging in the issues surrounding the referendum, either through social network, packed halls and campaigns, and the rest, and talking to people on the streets. Active participation at grassroots level. People coming from the schemes where we live and want to discuss with our neighbours, colleagues, friends and relatives what's in front of us. No a TV programme with politicians in shirts and ties. Us, our people, want to know what it means and where it's going to take us and what will it mean if we say no. So that's the benefit of getting here. So everybody's here in these four walls. We're able to speak in a forthright, honest and transparent fashion and get all the questions you possibly can answered and put in when that time comes. So thanks for attending so far. We'll see how we go. I'm now going to hand you over to Sharon to chair the proceedings. Thank you very much.
Thanks everybody for coming tonight. It's really, I can't believe how many people are here. It's absolutely brilliant. I'm a member of Lanarkshire Forum For Independence. Yes, Motherwell and Wishaw. The Indie Girls, absolutely any group I can get into now that's going to take us to a yes vote, as long as it's no political, because it's no about politics for me. This is a constitutional question. Every single one of us are equal in this just now. We don't need to wait to the 18th to be equal. That's why we're all here. Everybody's got one vote, one say. The politicians and everybody with money that's talking up against us, some of them don't even have a vote. So I'm here to try and inspire people to use your voice. This is our chance and we have to take it. While we're here tonight, I want everybody to be respectful to each other because we don't all agree. We've all got different opinions in this and different visions. So be respectful. If somebody says something you don't like, don't shout at them. They've got a right to say their piece as well. And also the questionnaires that the people have got, if you fill them in and you give them back to one of the indie girls at the end of the night, and if you do have any questions that you don't get answered because it is so busy, either go to one of the indie girls or one of the guys for Lanarkshire Forum For Independence, give them your name, give them your number, and we'll get back to you, we'll answer your questions. If we don't know it, we'll find it out for you. I think that's about it. Yeah. Oh, and there's an Indie Girls hit list too. It's reference-based stuff about NHS workers' rights, pensions, media, education, resources and assets, welfare, immigration, everything. So there's some of them going about tonight for information for you after the event. If you don't get one, contact us on the Facebook page and we'll get one to you. Now I'm going to hand it over to Tommy and let him do his stuff. Tommy, everybody.
What's the number going to be after?
The first thing I'm going to do, folks, is give away my chair because I feel dead guilty. I'm only 50. I know some of you think, no, you're no, Tom, you're only about 40. But I'm 50 and I'm sitting up here in a chair. That can get better used for somebody else out there. So one of these older guys doing the front here. Folks, can I, there you go, here's another chair, see? There you go. We'll sit in the flare in solidarity with you. Can I just say, folks, as John and Sharon have already indicated, I've had the great pleasure since January of this year to be able to tour Scotland. This is the 71st meeting I've spoke at. We've managed to get to 12,500 people at these meetings, packed halls like the night. And as John said earlier, it is important to realise, just to take a wee moment, apparently it's a gardener's tip that gardeners often forget, and sometimes you've got to stand back and have a wee look at the roses. I want you to just have a wee look around you tonight. A Friday night, 8 o'clock at night or whatever, and look at the packed turnout. This is evidence of people's desire to find out more about the most important decision that you're ever going to make in a generation, and to hear some of the arguments that are undiluted, undistorted, to hear some of the truths instead of the half-truths that you're getting through the mainstream media, to hear the message of those who believe in a yes vote, to hear it from the horse's mouth rather than to hear it in a distorted fashion by the mainstream media and the multimillionaires who are determined to make you think that you're no good enough, you're no big enough, you're no smart enough, and you're no rich enough to run your own affairs. We're here tonight to try and convince you that we are big enough, we are smart enough, we are courageous enough, and we're certainly rich enough to run our own affairs here in Scotland. That's what we're here tonight for. I want to address what I think are the most important issues concerning this independence referendum. But first and foremost, I think it's vital that we explain what this independence referendum is not about. And Sharon's touched on it. This independence referendum, and I take my hat off, there may be members of the Scottish National Party in the audience tonight. There may be members who have been working hard here in Wishaw to promote the yes vote. Take my hat off to them. Over many, many years, the SNP have done well in keeping the question of independence on the political agenda. However, this is the important thing. On the 18th of September, the SNP are not on the ballot paper. Alex Salmond's name is not on the ballot paper. On the 18th of September, it's not about whether you like, loathe, or hate the SNP or Alex Salmond. The 18th of September is much more important than that. The 18th of September is about the future of your country. That's what the 18th of September is about. It's not about politics. We've got an opportunity here, an opportunity that hundreds of countries have seized since the Second World War. Many of them, by the way, had to pick up guns and stones and catapults in order to win their independence from big imperialist nations. We only need to pick up a wee lead pencil. That's all we need to do on the 18th of September. We have to make it loud and clear that this independence referendum is bigger than party politics, and it's bigger than party politicians. This referendum, brothers and sisters, is about freedom. Freedom. Some of you might be thinking, oh, hey, Tommy, he's been on the sauce before he came to the meeting tonight. He's been watching Braveheart again. Where's the claymore and the kilt? We're not exactly in shackles and chains. We're not in prison. We're not even in handcuffs. And I know a thing or two about being in handcuffs. And by the way, just in case there are any gutter journalists in here tonight, none of it for kinky reasons, by the way. Brothers and sisters, what do I mean about freedom? Here's what I mean about freedom. Since 1951, this wee country, Scotland, has rejected the political creed of greed. This wee country, Scotland, has rejected the idea that the way to motivate the poor is to pay them less and get them to work longer, but the way to motivate the rich is to give them bigger bonuses and tax cuts. We have rejected the idea since 1951. Since 1951, this wee country, Scotland, has rejected the idea that public services are for sale to the city smiths in the city of London to become even richer. We have rejected the idea that there is no such thing as society. We believe there is such a thing as society. It's looking after your neighbours. It's looking after the elderly. It's looking after the disabled kids. That's what society's all about. And since 1951, we have refused to vote for a Tory government. That's what Scotland did in 1951. But here's the rub. Here's the lack of freedom. Since 1951, we haven't voted for a Tory government. But since 1951, our country has had to endure 35 years of Tory government. Not because we voted them, but because the south east of England voted for them. We've had to endure the ruination of whole industries, from steel to coal to rail. We've had to endure communities razed to the ground. We've had to suffer the indignity of mass unemployment, of communities that never knew what drugs were before the early 1980s, then been absolutely ravaged and scarred by the problems that drug abuse bring. We never voted for any of that. We never voted for any of that. But since 1951, we've had to endure 35 years of Thatcher, of Major, and now this lick-spittle millionaire Cameron. We therefore have one very, very powerful argument for why you should vote yes on the 18th of September, brothers and sisters. If you're looking for one argument in the pub, in the workplace, at the local community centre, at the shops, or if it was me yesterday in the Vodafone shop trying to get your phone fixed, at the diagnostic table, where 7 years gathered and ended up having a discussion about independence. Here's the one single argument that I think should be raised primarily with ordinary people in Scotland. A vote for independence on the 18th of September will prevent your children and their grandchildren ever having to endure another Tory government in Scotland. That's the reality. That's people want to go on about facts and figures and statistics, and we'll have some tonight. We'll discuss it. But let's be clear about it. This vote is about what's in our hearts here. It's about the future of our children and our grandchildren. An independent Scotland's going to be good for us all, but it's going to be even better for our children and our children's children. This is about the future, not just the present. What else? What other freedom is there? Here's a freedom that you've got in your hands on the 18th of September. A freedom that we have to sing and shout from the rooftops. Most of you won't be aware of the Health and Social Care Act 2012, passed by the Westminster Parliament, applies to England only. And what it does, 455 pages, big bill, the first 2 pages of it abolish the 60-year commitment that's existed since 1948 when the NHS was formed, abolishes the legal obligation on the Secretary of State of Health to provide free health care to the citizens of England. Gone. Doesn't exist anymore. They have now introduced in England a new internal private market for the provision of health care. They've invited 60 different private firms to bid for the contracts to provide private health care. Firms like the Royal Bank of Scotland, Virgin Money, PricewaterhouseCoopers, Circle Cement. What do they know about health care? Nothing. What do they know about making money? Plenty. That's what they've done to the English health service. Brothers and sisters, see if you believe that the health service in Scotland is valuable. See if you believe the health service in Scotland should remain in public hands. See if you reject the idea of what they've done in England, where they've modelled it in the United States of America, where they're going to force citizens there to take out private health insurance. You know what happens in America, don't you? You go to hospital, they don't reach for your pulse, they reach for your wallet. That's what they're introducing in England here and now. If you don't believe me, go on to YouTube. Look up Professor Alison Pollock, Professor of Health Economics. Look up Dr. Philippa Whiteford, cancer consultant. Listen to what they're saying. People who know what they're talking about, saying loud and clear, if we vote no on the 18th of September, within 5 years, the health service will be unrecognisable in Scotland. Within 10 years, the health service will be privatised in Scotland. That's the reality of a no vote on the 18th of September. What else? What other freedom do you have? The freedom to keep your education service free for kids who want to go to university, who want to develop their skills, who want to get a qualification. How many of your parents in here? How many of you want your children to get something maybe you couldn't get? To maybe get a better qualification, a better education. That's why we've fought long and hard to keep education free. What have they done in England? They've privatised it. You want to send your Wayne to university in England, you better have £9,000 every single year. Every single year. If you don't have £27,000 for a 3-year degree, your Waynes can't go to university. Here in Scotland, we don't have any upfront tuition fees. We've kept university education open. Not open enough as far as I'm concerned. We need to introduce mandatory grants for working class kids so that they can get support to go to university. That's the things we can change in an independent Scotland. But in the here and now, we don't have upfront tuition fees. Imagine this. We vote no on the 18th of September. And that mob down there on the 19th of September begin to look at the budgets. Because you know what happens? They provide our money. They give us our pocket money. We spend it in the wee parliament in Edinburgh there. We get to spend it as soon as you want to do anything adult, like you don't want to take part in wars, or you want to ban this public sale of air guns, or you want to increase workers' wages. They say, don't be silly. You're only a wee parental guidance parliament. You don't get to take decisions like that. They give us our budget to spend. 19th of September, and they're sitting round that cabinet table, and they'll be pissing themselves. They'll be saying, ha, the jocks, they can all sing Flower of Scotland when Scotland's playing, but they don't have the bottle to stand up and be counted when it comes to becoming an independent country. They want us to keep giving them money, to have no upfront tuition fees of £9,000 a head. Aye, that'll be right. They will force us to introduce the same measures that they have introduced down in England. That's why you've got the freedom on the 18th of September to keep education free. Brothers and sisters, there's another freedom you've got. There's another freedom which is very important to me. Might not be everybody's cup of tea, might not rock your boat the way it rocks mine. But I've got to say to you, I get pissed off. I get pissed off every single year without fail. Red Nose Week, Band-Aid, Live Aid. All these well-known superstars on the telly snapping their fingers. A child dies every 4 seconds. A damn disgrace. A child dies every 4 seconds of malnutrition. Thousands of kids die every day because of cholera, dysentery, diarrhea, because we don't have enough mosquito nets. Brothers and sisters, what I want to say to you is this. Why is it in this world of ours, there's never enough money to feed the wains and to give the wains the medicines to save their lives, but there's always enough money for bombs and missiles and wars? What? Why? We here in Scotland have the chance as a wee country to make our mark on the planet, because we're going to be a country that says nuclear weapons, immoral, illegal, scrap metal, because they'll never be used. If you ever use nuclear weapons, the game's a bogey. The planet's ours. Why the hell are we spending billions of pounds on nuclear weapons when we could be spending billions of pounds in hospitals and schools and doctors and nurses? That's what we're spending the money on. That's what's important. We've got the freedom in our hands here. If none of the other reasons we've talked about so far mean enough to you, then please think about this. A vote yes is to send a message across the planet that Scotland's a country of peace, that Scotland believes that there are more important things in life than nuclear missiles that kill indiscriminately. We believe in the real things that matter, like education, like health, like new houses. We've got the potential to build all of that instead of investing more in weapons of mass destruction. Brothers and sisters, here in Scotland, we've got the potential to reject the bus journey, to get off the bus, to get off the bus that Westminster's got us on, the bus that leads to more low pay, the bus that leads to more austerity, the bus that leads to more poverty. We can get off the bus and we can say, no, we're not into that journey any longer. We're into a new journey, because independence is not a destination. Independence is only the start of a new journey to build a better, fairer, more progressive Scotland, where we invest in real jobs with real pay. Instead of poverty wages and a minimum wage, we introduce a living wage so that people don't have to rely on benefits, working tax credits, housing benefit and the rest. If you paid people a decent wage, you would save money. When are we going to stop it? When are we going to stop subsidising the Asdas and the Tesco's of the world, the Morrisons? When are we going to? When are we going to have the bottle to introduce legislation that forces these multi-billion-pound corporations to dig into their pockets, and instead of multi-billion-pound profits, they actually pay their workers a living wage and we don't subsidise them any longer? When are we going to do that? And by the way, that's no. In an independent Scotland, we don't just introduce legislation for a living wage that gives dignity to everybody in employment. In an independent Scotland, we abolish the scandal of 0 hours contracts, which is yes, that's what we do in an independent Scotland. Our opponents in this debate, the Better Together campaign, tell us, UK, okay. Tell you what, 1 million families last year, 1 million families reliant on food banks. First time since the Second World War, the Red Cross in Britain are now involved in distributing food parcels here in Britain. We have over 1 million, predominantly young workers, on 0 hour contracts where they don't know day for day whether they've got a job. We've got 1 in 4 children born into poverty here in Scotland. We've got 1 in 5 of our pensioners living in poverty here in Scotland. We have the scandal, brothers and sisters, the scandal of 2,000 elderly folk every single winter, 2,000 dying prematurely of hypothermia because they can't afford to put their heating on. UK okay? UK's no okay to me. UK's a damn disgrace. UK's okay for the multi-millionaires. UK's okay for the 23, the 29 members of that cabinet that are personal millionaires, condemns that we never voted for, but are running our lives. 23 personal millionaires that sat round a table on the 1st of April last year, sat round their big cabinet table, 23 of them personal millionaires, and said, oh, we need to introduce some austerity, chaps. Why don't we punish those buggers that live in those council houses? Those ones on housing benefit. Why don't we introduce a bedroom tax? Why don't we attack the poor for being poor? Why don't we force these working class types to get their children to share bedrooms? How dare they? Don't you know? They're actually giving their kids separate bedrooms. How dare they? They sat round and introduced a bedroom tax to punish the poor, predominantly disabled. 70% of the people, 70% that were targeted by the bedroom tax were disabled families who were put into those houses because they needed somewhere to store the disabled equipment, or because their partners needed a different bedroom because one of them couldn't sleep properly because of their disabilities. Punishing the disabled, that's what these swine were doing. And in the same breath, after they passed that, they then said, oh, what's next, chaps? Oh, here's a wee tax cut. Because we're all in it together, don't you know? We're all in this together. So why don't we, on the same day that we introduce bedroom tax for the poor, why don't we introduce a tax cut for the rich? Why don't we say that anyone who's earning £150,000 a year or more will cut their tax by 5 pence in the pound? That's what they did. Cut it from 50 pence in the pound to 45 pence in the pound. Do you know that 13,000 millionaires today in Britain are paying £100,000 a year less in tax than they did last year? We're all in it together. My arse. We have got the chance here in Scotland to say to your Lords Robertson, your Lord Reid, your Lord Foulkes, your Lord McConnell, oh, they've all been dispatched, you know, 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, you know, and their super duper red ermine capes, you know, they've been dispatched to frighten us all. Don't dare vote for independence, it'll be doom and gloom. According to wee bomber Robertson, we're going to become a target for the terrorists and all that. Oh, be frightened, be afraid, be very afraid, you know. The only thing you'd be afraid of is you've seen their faces in the morning. That's the only thing that would have frightened you. And of course you then realise that they are no interested in poverty here in Scotland. They're not interested in low pay. They're not interested in Scotland's potential. What they're interested in is on the 19th of September, when we vote yes for independence, they're getting the P45s because we don't need the house. That's what they're worried about. I had a wee debate a few weeks ago through in Edinburgh there on the, I think it was This Week it was called, some show. And I had Michael Buffon Patillo across the couch for me there. I used to know him when he was a right-wing twat. Knew he's a right-wing twat with tartan trousers on. Need to watch the BBC's recording this. We need to be polite. Aye, right. And I made a few points about the potential of an independent Scotland. I made a few points about never mind our oil and gas reserves, which not only we've been told they might run out in 40 years' time. Oh, help my Bob. Going to run out in 40 years' time, you know. They never told you, of course, on that show about the geological surveys that have been done in the West Coast that show that there is more gas and oil to be extracted from the West Coast than we've even extracted from the North Coast. And the reason it's not been extracted is because it's in the direct shipping line of Trident. Well, as soon as we get rid of Trident, then we can extract the oil and gas for the West Coast. I says, not only do we have the oil and gas, but never mind that. We've got a food and beverage industry that means that Standard & Poor, the Financial Times, and every other financial organisation has estimated that even without oil and gas, Scotland would be number 16 in the world of rich nations as an independent country. With oil and gas, we're as high as number 4. That's the reality. I said, you know, we've got the potential here in Scotland with 25% of the whole of Europe's wind, wave, and solar power. We could become a country not only that's known for peace, but we can become a country that's known for sustainable energy production that we export across the world. Clean energy production. Scotland could become the world leader. I made these points. The bold Michael said, what Mr. Sheridan has to realise in his independent Scotland is he'll lose the subsidies from England. Honestly. By the way, it pisses you off even more to think that he's actually getting paid to be on that show. He doesn't know what it is to put his horn in his pocket. He gets taken around the country by the BBC to make these shows. I said to him, Mr. Patillo, you have to waken up, sir. You have to waken up to the reality. Scotland is no subsidy junkie. In the last 33 years in a row, no 1, no 2, no 3, 33 years in a row, this country, Scotland, has paid more money to the English Exchequer than we've got back from the English Exchequer. That's the reality. That's the reality. We don't start off, brothers and sisters, as a poor, struggling nation. We start off as a potentially rich and powerful nation. That instead of allowing the multi-millionaire businesses and individuals to choose what taxes they pay, we introduce legislation to make sure they pay their bloody taxes. We introduce legislation as an independent country with all of the wealth that we have in our fingertips. We generate in Scotland, we generate 10,000 £500 per head compared to 9,000 per head in England. We are a potentially rich country. In an independent Scotland, by the way, all of the things that we've talked about, they're all possible. They're all possible. But by the way, know what they are? They're only the start. They're only the start. See me, I'm no fighting for an independent Scotland, and some of you will be different because we've got different visions. We're all united on our belief for independence. We're all united on our belief for independence. That's what keeps us united. But I'm a socialist. I want independence for different reasons for other people. I want independence so that I never ever have to experience what I did with my first job in 1985 when I graduated from Stirling University and I got a job in the community programme with Starcliffe Regional Council, and I was a team leader in the hypothermia programme. My job as a team leader was to supervise a team of 8 people that would chart doors in the south of Glasgow to establish if there were any pensioners there. And once we established that there were pensioners there, we then gave them advice about how to avoid hypothermia. In one of the energy richest nations on the planet, we were advising war heroes about how to avoid hypothermia. We were advising them to wear socks in bed, to wear woolly hats. Tell you what, brothers and sisters, this is what I want to do in an independent Scotland. I want to do what the Labour Party didn't have the bottle to do in 13 years in power. 13 years, remember. 13 years in which they presided over a greater growth in inequality. 13 years in which they refused to repeal one single anti-trade union law. 13 years. 13 years. 13 years in which they refused to take back one single industry that was stolen from us by Thatcher. I tell you what I want to do. Tell you what I want to do in an independent Scotland. I want to guarantee there's never ever another pensioner anywhere in this country ever dies prematurely of hypothermia, because we're going to cut the gas. We're going to cut the electricity prices, because we're going to do what Labour didn't have the bottle to do. We're going to take back gas and electricity and in public ownership. That's what we're going to do. Think about the potential that exists, brothers and sisters. I don't want oil to stay in the private hands of the Texan billionaires. When the licenses come up for renewal, for exploration, extraction of the oil, I want them to be made public, so that we're just like Norway, so that we're just like Venezuela, so we're just like all the Middle Eastern countries, where oil isn't owned by private companies, it's owned by the government. That's the potential we've got in an independent Scotland, brothers and sisters. You know, I'm going to finish here because I know it's a dead hot evening. I apologise for speaking too long. It's uncomfortable, right? But I want to say this. I want to say this, brothers and sisters. In this debate, people are always looking for certainties. Can you be certain of this? Can you be certain of that? By the way, can you be certain you're going to wake up tomorrow morning? Come on. Certainties in life. I can't give you certainties. I can't tell you every dot and comma of what an independent Scotland's going to be like. I can tell you what I want it to be like. I can tell you that there's a great big empty book right in front of us, and each one of us has got a pencil, and we can write the future of Scotland in that book. But before we can bloody open it, we have to vote for independence before we can open the book. But if it's certainties you're looking for, here's certainties for you. If we vote no on the 18th of September, you can be absolutely certain on the 19th of September there'll be more poverty pay, there'll be more unemployment, there'll be more job losses, there'll be more food banks, there'll be more 0 hours contracts, there'll be more inequality. That's a certainty. Unison, Scotland brought out a document a month ago. Here's the frightener for you. brought a document a month ago. They said that we've already in Scotland lost 50,000 jobs in the public sector because of austerity. But the problem is, only 40% of the cuts that have already been announced have so far been implemented. There's another 60% of the cuts to come, another 60,000 jobs in the public sector across Scotland to go. That's a certainty. So brothers and sisters, I appeal to each and every one of you. Don't just stay it for yourselves. Some of you may have doubts, you know. And when I have these arguments with some people, I say, look at Westminster, look at what they're doing, look at other policies. If you wanted an absolute bottom line, if you didn't want to listen to other people's visions, an absolute bottom line, could we do any worse than Westminster? There's an absolute bottom line. Could we do any worse than Westminster? And of course the reality is, no, we can't do any worse, but we could do a hell of a lot better. Brothers and sisters, I'm going to finish with a wee bit of an emotional pull at your heartstrings. I'm sorry to do this, but it sort of keeps me going because I've got to say to you, 71 meetings, it means I've got a wife, a lovely wife, and I've got a beautiful daughter, and it means I don't spend as much time with them as I would like to. But I think it's worth it because it's for my Wayne's future that I'm doing it. And I think to myself, in terms of inspiring me across the country, I think of the words of a song by Labby Sifry called Something Inside So Strong. The verse that fires me up for this debate, because we're facing all the multi-millionaires and all the media, all these powerful people who tell us that we're no good enough. I remember the verse that reads, brothers and sisters, when they say we're just not good enough, when we know better, just look them in the eyes and say, we're going to do it anyway. Thanks very much, brothers and sisters.
Right, ladies and gentlemen, I'll let you take your seats. We'll have question and answers. We're just going to do one question, one answer. If you can keep them short, that would be good, but if you've got a lot to say, you've got a lot to say. It's a big decision we're making here. So if you just put your hands up, Darren will come round with the mic, and you can address Tommy, and we'll get started. But remember, everybody, no heckling, MD. It's really busy in here, and let people ask what they want to ask. We've all got a big decision to make. We need to look after each other and support each other through it. Right. And say your name loud and clear, who you are.
Hi, Tommy. It's Pat Lee here, MC at the BBC Biased People's Protest. Just a quick question. The Better Together camp has implicitly ruled out a currency union. We'll get the white elephant into the room now, which the Scottish Government describes as bluff and bluster. If it's not bluff and bluster, can you explain to the audience what will happen to the UK's credit rating when between £1 and £4 trillion of oil revenue is removed from the UK's GDP?
So it's a very good... It's a very good question, Pat. It's one of those questions which illustrates the strength of the Yes camp, because the Yes camp is a massive, massive big camp. Lots of views and lots of opinions. I'm, in a moment, going to make some points about sharing sterling, but I first of all have to say that I don't want to, that I don't agree I don't agree with the SNP government. I don't agree with the white paper. You see, in an independent Scotland, I want an independent Scottish bank that's publicly owned, that controls our money supply, so that when we decide that we need to build 100,000 new local authority homes, when we decide that we need to build 100 new community hospitals, when we decide that we need to renovate 1,000 new schools, the money supply is made available to finance all of those projects. I don't want an independent He believes we should share sterling. It's a reasonable argument. But the people of Scotland will decide in 2 years' time, when we've got a general election, the people of Scotland will decide whether we should fight to retain sterling or whether we should set up a very viable currency backed by oil and gas reserves that will be more valuable and more financially valuable than the English pound will be. You've got to remember, this is an economy that's bankrupt. This is an economy that's in £3 trillion worth of debt. They're right to say it's bluster and bluff. They want to keep Scotland as part of the sterling currency union, because if they lose Scotland, sterling will crash. No doubt about it. Personally, for a period of maybe 3 or 4 years, yeah, okay, let's share sterling. But once we've got over that first 3 or 4 years, I want Scotland to have its own currency. That's what I want.
Right, next question. The guy in the green shirt. And then you've got the one at the back.
My name's Stephen Lang. Tom, I don't really have a question. All I've got to say is keep up the good work. And you know what? I'm sick of being a guinea pig for Westminster. They give us poll tax, they give us bedroom tax, and the worst of all, they gave us Maggie Thatcher. And she took everything away from everybody around here. Everywhere in North Lanarkshire, she stole jobs, everything. She left us nothing. And now where are we? In poverty. We've got kids sleeping in the streets. There's no food for them. There's no jobs. There's nothing. So you know what? I don't care what Andy says. Even if you don't want to vote, like, get your finger out. Do you know what I mean? Enough's enough.
You know, there's a girl, women at the back here first, in the left.
The women in the green first.
Yep. I'll come back to that, Stephen.
Hello, my name's Laura Weir. I come from Bellsill. Hello, Tommy. It's great to see you in the forefront of Scottish politics again. Tommy, this message comes from the heart. Once this perjury trial's over, your appeal, and I know you will win, please set the wheels in motion for you to become the leader of the Scottish people.
Laura, I'm afraid you'll need to deal with my wife, Laura. I don't think she agree with that one. Listen, thanks very, very, very much. But can I tell you from the heart, the most important thing between now and 18th September is winning this. All the other decisions can be taken after this. This is the most important. But thanks very, very much for those comments.
Tommy, my name's Paul Jordan. I'm from Motherwell. I'm a primary teacher and I'm very proud of Scotland's education system. You mentioned free education in universities for our children. What do we do when maybe children, or parents of children down in England or Wales who realise or recognise the strength of the Scottish education system, if they want to send their kids to our universities, are we going to charge them, or are we going to allow them and possibly lose a place to a young Scottish child? What happens in that position?
Did you say Stephen?
Paul.
Paul, sorry, Paul. Paul, in an independent Scotland, and I do want to address one other point, because you have reminded me of something, but in an independent Scotland, England will be an independent England. And by the way, I hope they're good neighbours. I've got loads of good pals in Liverpool, Newcastle, a lot of good working class folk. I don't think we're abandoning England. I don't think we're abandoning English working class. I think we're leading the English working class. Because I think what we're going to do here in Scotland is we're going to show the working class of England that there is an alternative to the neoliberal claptrap of the Tories and the right wing of the Labour Party. We're going to show them that there is such a thing as public services and public ownership, and it is something to be valued and expanded. And I think over a number of years, the English working class, because they're a giant that's sleeping right now, they're going to look up and say, hey, if the jocks can do it, so can we. So we're not abandoning the English working class, we're leading the English working class. But in an independent Scotland, if children are coming from England or any other country to Scottish universities, they will have to pay the fees that other European Union countries have to pay. That's the reality. Our kids won't have to pay because we are keeping free education. That's a reality. I've got to say, I'm sorry to take the liberty here, but I want to tell this quick story. I should have told it earlier. But it's about a vision for education. When I was an MSP, I got invited to Fettes College to speak. Now, some of you might have heard of Fettes. Some of you here in Wishaw might have been at Fettes. I don't know if you have got a spare 25 grand and you have managed to get in there. I get invited along. I felt like the circus act, you know, the elephant man, you know, bring in this wide-eyed radical for the middle class and ruling class wains, you know. And I got brought into a hall, 250 packed, and they were very polite, and they sat and listened to me. And then this one wee chap put his hand in the air, and he said, Mr. Sheridan, isn't it the case in your independent socialist Scotland that you're going to close down Fettes College? And I said, well, son, I've just spoken to your tutor, and he's informed me that you've got a choice of 44 different curriculum subjects, any language you want, any science subject you want, that you've got class sizes of 15, that you've got individual tutors, and that you've got playing in sports fields that would be the envy of a Premiership football team. In an independent socialist Scotland, I don't want to close down Fettes College. I want to open up Fettes College to all. That's the reality. And I think, Paul, you probably as a teacher share my vision that in an independent Scotland, we stop looking down south and we stop accepting class sizes of 33 and 34 and we start looking over at Norway and Sweden and Denmark at class sizes of 15 and 20. That's what we should be doing in an independent Scotland. Thanks, Paul. There's a woman at the back there, sorry, and there's a chap at the front. Sorry, maybe it wasn't.
Sorry, it's the hair.
Actually, I thought it was. I thought the girl with the hoops there was one to ask, but.
My name's Ewan. I'm a student. I'm proud of Scotland. We've all been a forward-thinking nation. We've always wanted better conditions for workers. What would you say is the biggest barriers to getting a better Scotland, a fairer Scotland, where the people of the country aren't punished for the mistakes of the rich, and how can we overcome those barriers?
Ewan, you know, austerity, which, let's face it, Ewan's just defined austerity. Punishing the poor for the mistakes of the rich. That's what austerity is. I've got to ask you, how many pensioners in Wishaw? How many local authority workers here? How many health workers here were responsible for the economic crisis that happened in 2008? None of yous. Not one of yous. So why are you paying for it? Why are you paying for it? We need wage rises for 8 years. Why are you paying for it for falling living standards? Why are you paying for it? Why are we paying for the mistakes of the rich through the loss of public services and the loss of essential community services? We can't keep going on like this. And Ewan, I think the single biggest barrier to Scotland becoming a fairer country is our tie with Westminster. I think once we break that tie, Scotland is naturally a left-of-centre country, a country that believes in services, believes in public ownership, believes in looking after one another. Sure, we've got problems. I'm not saying we don't have problems. Of course we've got problems. But I think as an independent nation, we will tackle those problems a lot quicker than if we stay part of that horrible, corrupt Westminster village. So, personally, and by the way, I say this as a socialist. I'm not a nationalist. The Better Together keep saying, the nationalists, the nationalists, the nationalists. You don't need to be a nationalist to want independence. You just need to be a Democrat. You just need to be somebody that believes in democracy. I'm an internationalist, you, and I'll tell you what would make me proud is if we as an independent nation over this last couple of weeks, as an independent Scotland, instead of hoisting Palestinian flags above our local authority buildings, we were expelling the Israeli ambassador and boycotting Israel for the way they're attacking Palestine. That's what we should be doing. That's what an independent Scotland could do. There was a question down the front.
Hi Tommy, my name's Paul McCrum. I worked in the National Health Service for 26 years, like most of my family. And we hear many scare stories just like the Better Together, saying about the currency and whatever, but what do you see as a National Health Service in Scotland in the years to come?
Did you say Paul? Paul has asked about the National Health Service, and as I said earlier, I actually don't think, and I think the next 6 weeks we've got to rectify this, I don't think the Yes campaign has made enough of the threat to the National Health Service. I think we should have a massive campaign in this next 6 weeks to say NHS condition critical. A no vote will finish the National Health Service in Scotland. That's the reality. In an independent Scotland, we're going to have a constitution. We're going to have a written constitution, and in that constitution we're going to have it written that our health service is never privatised, stays a public service at all times. That's what we're going to do. We're going to have a written constitution that declares that education stays free. We're going to have a written constitution that bars nuclear weapons forever from our shores. We're going to have a written constitution that guarantees every citizen a living wage and a place in employment, training or education. We're going to have a written constitution which makes political parties legally obliged to carry out after elections what they said they were going to do before elections. That's what we're going to have in our constitution. We're going to have a constitution. We're going to have a constitution with a right of recall that they've got in many states in America and many European countries. So that if a politician asks you to vote for them and says, vote for me and I'll save the local community centre, and 4 weeks later votes to close it, you don't need to wait 4 years to get rid of them. You can trigger a by-election by getting enough signatures on the forums to make sure that liars like that get brought to book and you get them out after 4 weeks, no after 4 years. Politicians, brothers and sisters, let's face it, politicians, me included, we're like nappies. We should be changed regularly and for the same reason. Couple of questions down the front.
Hi Tommy, my name's Joanne. I've been fortunate enough to be a teacher in a number of different schools, primary school teacher. What I've noticed across North Lanarkshire is it's a postcode lottery with resources that each school gets. In an independent Scotland, would there be something introduced to say every school, no matter, you know, how underprivileged or how underprivileged they are, every school is going to have the same resources afforded to it, and school dinners? Because I've got kids coming in at 12 o'clock saying, I've not done to eat.
Again, an excellent question from Joanna, somebody that obviously believes in education as a teacher herself. And the reason I want legislation that guarantees statutory maximum school sizes is for precisely the point that Joanna makes. Because see, if it's just a local arrangement, then what you'll do is you'll get the East Dunbartonshires, you'll get the Bearsdens of the world, and they'll be able to afford through the local council tax to pay for more teachers, smaller class sizes. In the poorer areas, they won't be able to afford to do that. That's why we need national standards, laws that mean you cannot have class sizes above a certain level. Personally, I'd start at 20. I want to get to 15. What do you then have to do? You have to make sure you've got enough teachers. You have to make sure you've got enough classrooms. That needs investment. But what do we get at the end of it? We get better educated children who can realise their potential. Every child. Let's face it, folks. Every child, not just the ones for the Bearsdens and the Morningsides of the world. I want every child to be a potential doctor, to be a potential scientist, to be a potential engineer, to be a potential magician. I want every child to have the full potential to realise the fullest life. And we can only do that if they all get the same chances at education. That's why education is so important. So please, if you value education, if you seriously believe that education is something that is important, and by the way, Scotland, we've been built on education. Think of the things we've given the world, from penicillin to steam to medicines. Come on. We are a country that's been built on education. We've fought above our weight for many, many hundreds of years. Now we can realise our potential even more as a wee independent nation that is rich in potential and is rich in vision. Remember the words of Nelson Mandela. May your life's choices be guided by hope, not by fear. Please bear that in mind when it comes to the 18th of September. Folks, I'm just thinking, there's 3 more people with their hands in the air. We'll try and take that. I don't want to keep everybody here all night because it's boiling. I'm soaking, you're probably soaking. But we'll take 3 more questions if that's all right.
Hiya, my name's Ross Langford. I'm unemployed. I've got 3 questions I would sort of like to ask. The first one is, do you know where Tony Blair is? And why is he not in jail for his war crimes? You were talking about that earlier. Actually going to have to do it for us to put him on trial. I mean, he's killed millions of innocent children and he's getting like, what, 500 grand for spouting his pish like, everywhere he goes. The next question I had was, do you think we should become a republic after we vote yes? I think we should get rid of the monarchy. I think they're outdated. They're not fit for purpose. They're just, what is the point in them? And third of all, do you think we could decriminalise cannabis because it helps you think a wee bit clearer?
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. It's great when you ask young people to ask questions because they don't give a damn, do they? They just get stuck in. Well done, Ross. I'm going to take them in reverse order. I don't take it. Believe you me, I don't take any drugs. Apparently, I'm a bit of a coke fiend. I've never touched it in my life. But can I say with all honesty, I've had a wee bit of time in a few of our Majesty's hotels across Scotland. Can I tell you, I've never ever met anybody that had a spliff and took a knife to somebody's face. But I've met a lot of people I've met a lot of people that downed some super Cali's in wine and took knives to people's faces. The truth is, the most dangerous drug in society is alcohol. That's the reality. And I could never accept the hypocrisy of those in power who think nothing of downing a few brandies and whiskies, but then scouring and looking down their noses at somebody that wants a spliff. The only thing that people taking a joint want to attack is the fridge. That's the reality. So I've got to say, Ross, if it's up to me, brother, I would be for legalization of cannabis, licensing cannabis, and by the way, taxing cannabis so that we made some revenue from it. I don't understand why we stand idly by, and you know them yourselves because they're driving around in the top of the range 4x4s. They're making a packet out of trading in drugs. I don't know why we don't do it properly, legally, and more healthily. And if somebody wants to have a wee spliff rather than a pint, are we really going to call them a criminal for that? Come on. We don't promote them. I wouldn't allow the promotion of alcohol. I wouldn't allow the promotion of cannabis. But I certainly wouldn't allow people to be criminalised for smoking a bloody joint. It's a disgrace. It's stupid. In relation to the question of the monarchy, I said earlier on, in relation to the currency, that one of the beauties of the yes camp is the size of the camp means that we're all united for yes, but it doesn't mean we're all united in what our vision is for an independent Scotland. The SNP have a vision of a slimmed down monarchy. I don't want them on slim fast or any other diet, I've got to say to you. I just don't want anybody having any control over my life unless they're elected and I can get rid of them. That's the reality of the day. So I don't support an unelected head of state. I also have to say, in relation to the European Union, in case that comes up, I actually don't believe that the European Union is a body that has the interests of the working class at heart. The European Union is a rigged big business organisation that promotes big business, promotes privatisation, and will undermine workers' rights. I don't want to be a member of the European Union, and I wish the SNP would stop saying that an independent Scotland is going to be a member of the European Union. What the SNP should be saying is that they believe an independent Scotland should be a member of the European Union. But the reality is, an independent Scotland will decide whether we're a member of the European Union. That's the reality. And the final thing in relation to what Ross said, he asked a question and then he answered it perfectly. Where is Tony Blair? Well, we don't know where he is. We know he'll not be paying for his fare wherever he's gone. And we know he'll be getting millions for whatever he's doing. But we also know where he should be. In The Hague, tried as a war criminal. That's where he should be. Absolutely. We've got two more questions. There's one there and then there's a female at the back. So there was three there. We'll try and squeeze you in. I'm just dead conscious of everybody leaving. I'm going to, while we're waiting for the mic to get, folks, I have to ask you to consider when you leave tonight. There's a wee pamphlet called Hope Over Fear. It's a wee story about this pamphlet. I gave a speech on the 23rd of January up in Kirkcaldy at a meeting that was videoed and then put up onto YouTube. And it's now had 140,000 views on YouTube. I think that shows the potential for an independent Scotland, that people at that number are tuning into a political speech to hear the arguments for independence. We've turned that speech into a pamphlet. Please, if you don't mind buying a pamphlet, it's only £1 and it helps to pay for the petrol costs and the PA costs for the Hope Over Fear tour. So if you don't mind getting one as you're leaving tonight, they'll be on sale in the corridor there. Sorry, yourself, brother.
Hello, Tommy. Jim McMahon. Your vision of Scotland as a utopia is very laudable, and I hope it does transpire. But I think there are a lot of practical issues in the interim period before we get to that state. And one of them that most people is concerned about is the currency. And I do think that after a yes vote, the UK government will share the pound with us, but at a cost. We're going to have the Bank of England control the interest rates, and the cost of all of that may also be we may have to give some concessions as regards Trident. What are your feelings about that? And also, a wee supplementary was that is our health and also education not already devolved to the Scottish Parliament?
Jim, take the last two questions first. Health and education is devolved to the Scottish Parliament. That's why we still have a publicly owned health service. That's why we don't have upfront tuition fees. That's why we have free prescriptions. None of that exists in England. The point is, if we stay part of the UK, we stay part of the Barnett formula, which means Westminster decides how much money we get to spend on our health and on our education. The point I'm making, Jim, if we don't go independent, they are going to force us to follow them into the madness of privatisation of health and education. That's why independence is so important. Relation to the point about the currency, I think you're absolutely right. It's already been made clear down the front here. Do you honestly think that a country that's a net contributor to the UK exchequer is going to be kept out of a currency union after independence? The sterling would collapse. That's the reality. It's pure bluff, and it's pure blunder, and it's pure fear. Project Fear. Remember that. That's what the Better Together campaign is underlined by. Frighten everybody into thinking we can't do it. I believe we can do it. And in relation to Trident, Jim, it's already been made clear. And it had to be because there was nearly a revolt within the SNP on this. It's non-negotiable. Trident is going, by the way. And by just in case there's any misunderstandings here, I don't want Trident to go for the Clyde down to Portsmouth. I've already looked at that, by the way. MOD have analysed putting it in Portsmouth. Know what they decided? The collateral damage would be too high. So it's all right being the Clyde, but it's not all right being Portsmouth. I don't want Trident to just be moved to England. I want it to be decommissioned completely. I know it's going to take a few years to decommission it. So where are we going to put it until it's decommissioned? I know where we're going to put it. The River Thames right outside Westminster. That's where we're going to. Let's see how quickly they decommission it then. There's another question, brother.
Tommy, John Boyle, I've been an activist for 40 years along with Brother Milligan, right? You know and I know. What I want to know is, when we win the election on it's announced on the 19th, where is the socialist infrastructure? I understand yourself, but do you see the car from Westminster coming up here? Because all you're doing is you're changing the game from London to Edinburgh. Have you seen enough in your 71 meetings for the young people of Scotland to take the banner up and get us what we've been trying to get for the last 51 years, a socialist government in Scotland?
Absolutely. Bro, what was your first name? John, can I say to you, I've had the pleasure at these meetings of sharing platforms with young Mary Black, 19 years of age, young boy Ryan, 17 years of age, other boys, 16 years of age. And I'll tell you what, see, once I've spoken, I tend to get up and say, I think we've won already. Because see the vision and the articulacy and the passion that I'm getting for young folk now. We've awakened a nation, by the way. We've awakened a whole generation to what's potentially possible here in Scotland, I don't think they're going to sleep again, John. I think, and I've made this point over and over again, that's why I made the point of independence not being a destination. It's only the start of the journey. I think our big campaign starts in the 19th of September. Okay, let's start it on the 20th, because we're all going to celebrate on the 19th. But the reality is, we are going to have all of those young people, all of those latent activists. I mean, how many of you, honestly, how many of you here have been at a political public meeting before? Every time I'm going to meetings now, 99% of people have never been at a meeting. And I'm talking hundreds and hundreds of people coming to halls. They've been awakened, and they're not going back to sleep. I think the potential we've got, John, is to transform Scotland for the better, absolutely. There will be a left of centre government, if not a socialist one, eventually. There'll be a left of centre one. And by the way, irony of ironies, the Labour Party probably has most to gain from independence. The reality, because they know that after independence, they can't stay the same. Or they'll be like the snow off a bloody dike. They'll be like the dodo. They'll have to revitalise, they'll have to reform. The trade union movement's going to have to get its finger out and stop holding on to that corpse and keeping it alive when they should let it die. And I hope they will fund and organise a real socialist party for the people of Scotland to vote for. That's what I'm looking for, John. Take our last question, folks. Everybody's like, whoa, thank God. Can you get down the road? You don't need your sleeping bags after all. Sorry, I'm going to take two then, because there's a chap there and then there's a woman behind you, so take two.
Yeah.
I think.
I'm John McGee. I'm 60 years old. I voted against the EEC in 1973. I've never had a wish to be European. I've always been Scottish. This vote terrifies me, but I'm still voting yes.
Brilliant, John. Take the last question from the woman at the back there. And we'll finish up, folks.
Hi, Angela Feeney. I spoke to you before up at Carluke when you spoke.
Right,
my question, I'm a socialist and I worry about what happens. The Tories and UKIP are going to get in. They could possibly do away with the minimum wage. They won't have a living wage. I want Scotland to have a good standard, a good living wage. How can companies compete with factories, big companies down in England?
Angela, it's an excellent question, and I've got to say, companies don't service nationalities. Companies service customers. Why would any company that wants to make money disinvest for a country that's going to become even more financially viable than we are now? We're going to have a higher living standard. We're going to have more people in employment. We're going to have a higher living wage. What happens when you give people a living wage? They spend it. What do they spend it on? Goods and services. We're not going to have disinvestment. You mark my words, we will have new investment. We will have companies knocking down the door to come to Scotland because we will have a higher national product and we will have a higher living standard. That's the reality, Angela, as far as I'm concerned, in an independent Scotland. We've got nothing to worry about as far as these companies are concerned. Although what I would say to those that are trying to scaremonger, the B&Qs of the world, you know. I passed Homebase on the way here. I think we should start shopping at Homebase instead of B&Q. Tell B&Q we're not going to be frightened. Brothers and sisters, don't allow some multinational corporation to decide your fate and your country's fate. Vote for what you believe in. Vote for what you think is right. Economically, we are going to become a powerhouse. The companies are going to be knocking down the doors to become part of that new development. That's the reality. John talked there about being frightened. And by the way, why shouldn't we be? This is the biggest decision we've probably made in our lives. But are we going to be guided by fear, or are we going to be guided by hope? Brothers and sisters, I want to finish by thinking about the grandwains. I want you to think about the 10-year-olds, 11-year-olds, 12-year-olds. 10 years from now, we've voted no. And they're now 20, 21, 22. And they're asking you, Granda, can you lend me the money so I can go to another country and try and get a job? Because they're going to be growing up in a country that's poorer, a country with more unemployment, a country with more low pay, a country with more 0 hours contracts, a country with less public services, a country with a privatised health service, a country with a privatised education service. And that Wayne, 21, 22, is going to say to you, Granda, how did you vote? How did you vote in the big referendum? And see, if you voted no, you're going to be very uncomfortable, because by then you're going to realise you made a humongous mistake. You made a humongous mistake. You're going to say, son, I voted no. And that Wayne's going to look at you and say, you voted no. Why did you vote no? And you're going to say, because I didn't like Alex Salmond. And that Wayne's going to look at you and say, who? Who? That's how irrelevant individuals are. Political parties are to this vote, brothers and sisters. I hope you've heard enough tonight. Not just to be a yes voter. We've got 6 weeks left. I don't want you just to be yes voters. I want you to be yes ambassadors. I want you to be yes campaigners, yes crusaders. I want you to go into every single scheme, every single workplace, to raise the call, to vote with your heart, to vote with your head, to vote for vision and hope, to vote against fear and darkness. Brothers and sisters, don't allow them to say we're not good enough. We are good enough. And we're going to declare our independence on the 19th of September. Thanks very much.